You're listening to The Solution, a podcast by Growers Mineral. I'm your producer, Russell Bobel. With me, as always, is our host, Marguerite Fall, as well as our Director of Research, Jim Halbeisen. Last week, we sat down with one of our Canadian DMs, Larry Webb, as well as Zach Smith, our Assistant Director of Research.
Well, Larry's going to do a walkthrough with me about my yard today because I have a lot of issues with my yard and with my gardens.
Lots of issues, but specifically with the yard.
Yes. And so, yes, I also have personal issues. Thank you, Russell. Yes. No, my yard, it needs some attention, and the person who lived there previously did not maintain the yard. So we've got years of catching up to do, and I'm feeling very overwhelmed by that. I'm also 9 months pregnant, so those are probably the personal issues that Russell's referring to, hoping that growers can help make a difference.
And the thing that's going to be super about Larry is that he's got a lot of experience with this. And if there's any discussion about plants, trees particularly, Larry's got a lot of experience with trees. So the things that he talks about, he's actually done, himself, which makes it much more valuable than somebody that's never been to the rodeo.
And I do think that this is very applicable because all the struggles I have with my yard, I think are very common for the typical person who isn't the best at taking care of their yard or is planting new plants. So very, very applicable to the average person, which is a little different than our normal podcast episodes, which are more farming based. Sure. So I'm very excited for this one. So without further ado, let's introduce Larry and Zach. This is Marguerite, and meeting here today with Larry Webb, who's a sales rep in Canada, and Zach Smith and Jim Halbeisen. And we're here to talk a little bit today about our yard, my yard at my house. I have a lot of issues, and Larry offered to help me out and stop by as my friendly representative and look at my house and tell me what I could do to make my yard look better. So I'm going to start with a little background on my house, and please interject, Larry, if you have any other questions or I miss anything I should describe. But, I have a house that was built in 2001, so it's relatively new, but we do have a lot of trees in the backyard, which is very nice, and big trees. So I think when they built the house that they made the right decision to not tear down all the trees and just built it in the front of the plot. And left the back untouched. But there's so many trees that we have no grass in the backyard. And the previous owner said she tried for years and years and paid so many landscapers and never could get grass to grow. And we also haven't been successful. In our front yard, the grass looks great. We have gardens all around that are completely empty. The previous owner, she was not, she clearly didn't care much about the outside of her house. So there are no flowers. Come spring, it was very, very sad. There's no pop of a daffodil, nothing, just empty gardens. And we do have a history of having dogs at the house, probably because there is an invisible fence. I think that was one question Larry asked before we had this call. We definitely have an invisible fence, and we have a dog, but the previous owner didn't have a dog when we looked at the house, so I'm not sure how long that was. So I guess we're here today because I have a lot of issues with my house getting the lawn under control after years of not being maintained.
Okay, so do you want to start in the backyard then and work our way to the street?
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan. So okay. Let's definitely start with the background, the grass that doesn't grow.
Yeah, all right. So as you probably learned by now that everything in Mother Nature, there's a reaction for whatever's gone on. So the reason the grass isn't there, there's a reason for that. So you have to determine what that is. So the trees were there first by the sounds of it. So their root structure is quite intensive, and it's probably gone on quite a ways, as well as the shading aspect. So, and this is going to sound like a broken record, but you want to get some calcium into that soil before you even consider putting grass seed down. And if you can get Jim to find you some snow white, that'll work in faster. And try and get it in there, over the summer, spread it around, rake it in, incorporate it somehow. And then try and find either straight creeping red fescue or a blend of shaded grass seed that is high in creeping red fescue. And that seems to work really well in shaded areas, and that should help bring along your bald spots back there. And be aware that it's not going to fix itself overnight. This may take you a couple of years to get you to where you want to be. But it is doable. It's just that it takes time to repair these things as we go along.
That makes sense.
Like an easy job for you?
It sounds doable, not easy. But doable, yes. Well, and I do think that clearly something should be able to grow because we have lots of very happy weeds, just no grass.
Okay, so the weeds are telling you something. The weeds are telling you that the soil is out of balance. Okay. I actually have a couple of pieces of literature. I think one of them might have actually come from Acres USA, and it's several pages, and it lists weeds and it lists the reason or the what the weeds indicate by them being present in your soil. Be it high phosphorus, low nitrogen, high potash, low calcium, all that sort of stuff, high magnesium. The weeds tell you this, according to this document that I have. And it seems to bear out in actual practice over the years. I've noticed that sort of thing goes on. So your weeds are and the lack of grass, they're telling you something. And 9 times out of 10, getting that calcium content up in that soil structure will alleviate, like pretty near all of these issues for you.
Oh, okay. That's so interesting. Yeah. That makes sense. It definitely tells me that things can grow. So the imbalance, that makes a lot of sense to me. All right. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. That's definitely doable moving forward.
Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah. So in the back as well, we have these huge gardening, beds that a landscaper has prepped and mulched right before we bought the house, but they didn't actually plant anything in it. So I have, and I really am not a naturally green thumb person. So for me to, buy flowers and plant them, they have a very, low chance of survival, if you will.
Is it the shaded area?
Yes, it is very shaded. Yes.
Okay. So the easy way for shaded areas is to get yourself some hostas.
Oh, okay.
Hostas come in various shades and colors and sizes. If you were a little closer, my wife would happily give you hostas. We've got stuff in our flower beds that we've been splitting and giving to people and just trying to get rid of them. So hosta can be a very large plant. It can be a very large leaf. It can be a variegated leaf. It can be, lots of different things. There's like hundreds of different hostas. So you can really have fun mixing and matching and putting them in there. And once they're in there, you forget about them. They grow and they do their thing. So when you're getting the plant and getting it out of the pot, you can dig your hole, let it go in, and dig the hole down maybe 3-4 inches deeper than it needs to be. And now that you've got that bag of Snow White from Jim, you take a handful or a little scoop of that, put it in the bottom of the hole first, cover that with a thin layer of dirt, and then place your plant in there. And then backfill around it and water it in a little bit and put the mulch around it. And go for a walk with the new baby.
I like it. I do have one more question on that too, because so I've tried to plant a few things and they're really not doing well. Like I've tried to plant a few, just annuals that I had that could do, says they could do shade. But I think part of the problem is that I'm used to having a sandy soil because that's what I always had growing up and where I lived previously. And now this house we have, it is strongly a clay soil. And I mean, it's harder to dig. I don't know what to do with it. It doesn't break up very easily. It's tough to work with. It's very different. So do you think that just kind of adding that bit of Snow White is going to help make that difference?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It'll help open it up.
Okay.
It'd be nice to have the whole bed worked up, but if he's already got mulch over it, then you'd have to scrape all that off and do a lot of rooting and digging. So often if you can do a site thing, the hostas, they develop quite a root system and they'll do their thing there.
Okay.
And that the clay soil is a time thing. At a certain point in the year, you can usually work with it. Before or after that point, it's very difficult, depending on what how condensed the clay is.
Okay, perfect. Another question that I have in the backyard. So all these big trees that I have these big beautiful trees that are they have to have been left behind because they're taller than I would think, the 20 years that the house has been built. But one of my concerns was, if I put down this calcium and then I plant new grass back there, right, and I'm changing that soil, the trees are doing so well. Am I going to do anything negative to the trees? Because we wouldn't want to lose the trees.
No, your trees will be fine. They're well established. Aside from going in there with an excavator and digging down 8 or 10 feet, they'll be fine.
Okay. That's great. And another thing I was thinking about adding kind of over to the side of my yard would be some fruit trees. And I know fruit trees are, or I guess I've heard, not from farmers, but I've heard from normal people like me, the average person, that fruit trees are really hard.
You're not normal.
No, I'm maybe not the most normal, but I've heard fruit trees can be a challenge. And like I've said, I'm already struggling with my regular flowers and my annuals in my garden. So I don't want to spend the money on fruit trees and trying to get them planted if I'm just going to kill them.
Okay, so first things first, varieties. Okay. There's some scab-free varieties that are usually available at the nurseries. So they make things a whole lot easier because you're not dealing with apple scab on your fruit. Okay, so that's the first thing to look at. You want to watch for like a Honeycrisp or a Northern Spy. They're very calcium dependent. Okay, so they become a bit of an issue to grow. So always look for user-friendly varieties of fruit or varieties of apples to grow. Go with a dwarf tree and support it. Once you've brought the tree home from the nursery, you want to make sure you've got a post or a T-stake or something to support that tree. Because they don't have the internal structure in the wood. So you want to support it. Dig your hole similar to what you've done with the hosta. And again, don't be shy of putting calcium in the bottom of that hole.
Even for the fruit tree too? Okay.
The roots will find it and they'll be really happy that you've done that. One thing I've done with mine here is we were doing some renovations in the basement and I've had some little pieces of drywall left. And I've actually taken them out and laid them around the tree. The first reason was to keep the grass away from the trunk of the tree, because that's important. And the second one is then I've got a source of gypsum that's going to be leaching down into the root zone too, and that'll help the tree.
Fascinating.
Make sure you've got a tree guard on the tree, because you're going to either have mice or rabbits or both in your yard.
We do have lots of deer too.
Okay, then.
Does it change our conversation?
If you've got deer, then your dog, the smell of your dog may be enough to keep it away.
Okay.
If not, every time you or your husband goes to the barber shop or the hairdressers, take a little bag with you, bring home a bag of hair.
What? Okay.
Find yourself an old socket or something and put some hair in that and tie it in the tree. And after every rainstorm or so, replace that bag.
Okay.
The smell of the human smell will help deter the deer.
Oh, wow. Okay. I wish I'd known that tip years ago. That's a great tip.
Well, I mean, it works most of the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, you've got town deer there, so it's hard to say, but it's worth a shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing, that once your trees get a little bit bigger, and your kids do too, get a plastic, I used to use a margarine container with a snap-on lid.
Yeah.
Okay, so get yourself one of those, take the lid off of it, and cut a hole, an inch or so in the lid. And then poke a little hole through the lid and through the side of the container so that you can hang it up on an angle.
Okay.
Put a little bit of molasses and water down in that container, snap the lid on it, and hang it up in your tree. And then you watch that. You'll get all kinds of insects in that contraption. The smell of the molasses drags them in there, and they get into that, and they get stuck in the molasses, and they're there, rather than them biting your fruit and stinging your apples and making them usable.
That's smart. Okay, I like that idea.
So it's kind of an organic thing. It's kind of a fun thing for the kids to do. I used to show the kids the contents when they come out for farm tours when we had our orchard. And I used to tell the kids, well, this is kind of a guy thing because it's a black goopy mess in this plastic container. The girls would turn up their noses and the guy would say, oh, cool. That kind of stuff. So it's fun for the kids. And if it helps keep your apples clean, then they're going to eat them, right?
Right. Oh, that's great.
It hopefully gets you away from most of the pesticides. Once you get something going, call me again and we can talk about using hydrogen peroxide and that as a bug killer.
Oh, okay. What about woodpeckers? We have a lot of woodpeckers. Would that present any issue with fruit trees, or do you think they would stay away from them mostly?
Yeah, they won't bother them.
Okay, that's great. The other thing I was wondering, so we've talked about using calcium and that sort of thing to help with making sure the plants have what they need. What about adding, a fertilizer on? So adding, growers' fertilizer. If I were to do that, one of my big concerns is harming the wildlife. We've talked about some anti-pesticide methods, right? So what fertilizer methods too, we have a lot of bluebirds, and bluebirds in particular are very, very sensitive. And we're very passionate about our bluebirds and encourage them to nest, in our neighborhood. So I wouldn't want to harm them. No. So would growers be safe to use around the bluebirds?
Yeah, no problems there. I mean, when we had our orchard, we had somewhere around 15 or so beehives in the orchard, and they stayed there all year round.
Okay.
And I was spraying growers out there, every 14 days or whatever.
Okay.
And that was never an issue. People were horrified until they realized that the bees were fine.
Yeah.
And if it's going to hurt a honeybee, it's definitely not going to hurt a bluebird, which is a considerable bit larger creature.
Yes. Okay. That's great. That's great. Yeah. So maybe let's walk around to the, kind of front of the house in our imaginations, right? And check out what's going on up front. It's a little different of issues, right? So the grass in the front, is good. I mean, there is grass, there's a couple spots that are maybe a little bit patchy, which I think you kind of already addressed. Maybe I could put some calcium on them, right? But what my problem is with the grass is it doesn't match everyone else's in the neighborhood. Everyone else has this really green, bright green grass that looks, so pretty, and they're all very particular about it. And then our grass is, a little yellow, if you will. What do I do about that?
Well, are your neighbors getting their lawns cut by a service?
I mean, I would think they all are. Yes. There's some of them I see out doing it themselves, but not the majority. Right.
Okay, so the first thing is you have to realize that those guys are fertilizing heavy. The lawn service guys, they're fertilizing it heavy because they want to come back and charge you to cut the grass. Okay, so it's a make work project for them. And they cut the grass short, which is another make work project for them too. So if you have your grass growing out there and get yourself a hose end sprayer.
Okay.
Bottle that screws on the end of your garden hose. You can set the ratio on it. The hardware stores usually have them. The other thing you can do is get a 1 or 2 gallon pump up sprayer and go out there every couple of weeks and spray growers on your lawn. Now, growers will give you a nice thick lawn. It'll make the lawn grow nicely. It won't give you quite as dark or green, but at the end of it all, once you've got a year or so invested in this, you'll end up with a very thick lawn, and it'll look really, really good doing that. And in your mixture, I would shoot for probably 25 to 1 as a ratio. So 25 parts water, 1 part growers.
Oh, okay.
Okay, to give it some material to work with. And when your husband's not looking, jack up the lawnmower so it cuts the lawn at about 3 inches.
Okay.
Okay. These guys they're cutting lawns like they're putting greens, and they're really shooting themselves in the foot. If you have about a 3-inch blade of grass, that's going to catch an awful lot of sunlight, and it's going to catch growers when you spray it, and it really helps the plant because we need that sunlight to generate the energy in the plant.
Right.
For the roots to grow, and when you do that, your lawn will withstand the dry periods an awful lot better.
Okay.
And the next thing then in the fall, lay a good coating of calcium on it just before the snow flies.
Oh, okay.
And what you might find with that is the calcium will bring out the clover. For some reason, it seems to help the clover seeds germinate that may be in your lawn. And if that does, then it's kind of a bonus too. It's not looking like blades of grass, but it'll stay greener longer than grass. And the clover actually fixates nitrogen out of the air. So in fact, the lawn is feeding itself.
Okay, that's awesome.
You can't go wrong with that.
I love that. So
and one thing on your dog spots before we go away from that.
I like that they were dog spots too.
Just the way you described it before, dog spots. Okay,
yes.
So what I'm doing with my one daughter over her place, she's got dog spot going on there because of the resident dog. So again, sprinkle some Snow White on there and get yourself a pump bottle down at Dollar Tree or Dollar General, wherever, Walmart, and anytime you use water in a sprayer, hopefully it's rainwater.
Okay.
Okay. So put some rainwater in this thing. And what I've been trying this year is about 15 milliliters of growers and about 5 milliliters of soil conditioner. And the soil conditioner will mix in there. You talk nicely to Jim. He's probably got a bag ripped around the office there someplace. You can get a scoop of it.
Okay.
And mix that up and spread the snow white on, and then wait for a day or so till hopefully it's worked its way down in a little bit, and then mist that area, and get after that, once a week. That's your Saturday night job before you put your feet up. Go out there and give those dog spots a shot of that, and that'll help bring it back.
Okay.
It won't be fast, but it'll bring it back. It's the acid in the dog's urine that's actually doing in the vegetation. So you're using calcium to neutralize that, and then you're using the growers and the soil conditioner to help activate it.
So there's one particular flower I planted recently as well that my dog loves to specifically pee on. Mm-hmm. Would that help that as well? Or is there something different I can do to help? Or are we just giving up on that flower?
Could give up on the dog.
You want one, Larry? You offering to take him?
Well,
no.
We've kind of gotten away from dogs here at the moment, so...
He's a pretty good dog other than that, but that has been an issue.
Well, there's something there that must be attracting him to that. The flower out near the road or the sidewalk?
No, actually it's in the backyard, in kind of those empty gardens we talked about. I've planted maybe 3, annuals. So they're annuals, so I guess I could just give up on them. But I'm worried it's going to be a recurring issue every year. But I've just planted like 3 plants, and they're all the same. And there's one that he just has picked that is his go-to. So I usually let him out in the front yard now because he just pees on that plant if I let him out in the back.
Have you thought of moving the plant? Maybe it's the site, not necessarily the plant.
Okay, can I do that? I just planted it. Yeah. Sure. Okay. And just try moving it.
Water it in good after you've moved it.
Okay.
I helped my dad transplant a bunch of perennials into the front garden. Lots of hostas, Larry. Some other stuff too. And Larry gave us that same advice, the putting the calcium in the bottom of the hole. And the gardens, like my dad's he's not got a black thumb, but he's certainly not got a green one either, because he just doesn't care to take that much time to maintain the stuff. But that garden's done wonderfully. He mulches it every year, and besides that, it pretty much just does its own thing and looks really nice.
Oh, that's great. So I want to clarify too, since I'm kind of new, when to put the calcium down. So whenever I'm planting something new, which we've discussed, I will obviously be doing a lot of since I have empty gardens and no grass. So whenever I'm planting something new, I should put calcium down.
Yes.
And then Larry mentioned putting calcium down right before the snow, in my front yard where the grass, could be better. So is that something you should do every year?
Yes, having fresh available calcium all the time is paramount, because the calcium is doing a lot of different things. It's aerating your soil, it's feeding your plant, but it also feeds the biological life that's in the soil, because it feeds on that very heavily. So it's multidimensional for you. It's doing a lot of different things. So no matter when you're planting, and once you get the plant established, if you just refurbish with a little bit of calcium in the surface so that when it rains, it washes it down into the profile. When you first start, you should work it in physically to bring some oxygen into the profile But then once the plant is established, when you re-add the calcium, the rainfall will carry it down into the profile, and you're using the calcium all year long, so you want to replace that. So it should be something you should do every year.
So when you say work it in, I know Russell had helped me and Rick had helped me when I was about to sell my house in Milan. We had this huge, the previous owners loved having a big vegetable garden, so the entire yard was a vegetable garden. And not fenced in, just free going vegetables, right? Like 15 tomato plants. Who needs that many tomatoes? It was a lot. And so we took everything out and then put calcium down and like rototilled it.
Excellent.
But how else would if I already have grass there, obviously I'm not going to pull out my rototiller and work out all my grass. So there's no way to get it. I just put it on, right?
Yeah, you can just put it on and take like a yard rake and just scuff it a little bit. See, just that breaking the surface a little bit introduces oxygen in
but won't
around.
ruin my grass.
It won't ruin the grass, that's correct.
Marguerite, do you ever get your lawn aerated?
What?
They pull up little 2-inch plugs of dirt.
No. What is that? I don't even know what that is. Okay.
I assume they do it down there. It happens a lot up here every spring up in Ontario. It's lawn aeration. Basically, they just pull up little.
Jim's
like
nodding.
I said, 2-inch.
Jim's nodding. People do this. Yes.
Yeah,
No. I just missed the memo.
Golf courses are very big at that because they struggle with grass having too much water on it, and the plant can't breathe. So they pull these plugs out, and that automatically brings air in there. And if you drop the calcium down in where that plug was, that gets it incorporated for you.
So you're thinking that would be another way to do that?
Yes.
If you do it, obviously it's up to you, but
if you just use
it's an easy, you can kill two birds with one stone then.
Yeah.
If you already did it.
But if you don't want to contract somebody to do that, when you put that calcium down, just take your yard rake and scuff that surface. That little bit of scuffing will be enough to get the ball rolling. It won't be as good as that rototiller was, but it'll still be better than just letting it lay there.
Okay.
Marguerite, that's why you do this stuff in the fall. Put the lime down in the fall, because then you have all winter, which typically has more precipitation, even if it's in the form of snow, because it'll eventually melt.
Right.
And you have more time for that calcium to be dragged down into the soil by that precipitation.
Right.
Rather than doing it, you can do it any time of the year, but in the fall, it gives you more time before you're going to have growing plants there that are going to use the calcium to get it worked in.
Okay, I like that. Larry over there is feeling like this is a great conversation because he told me all of this and now I'm double checking, right? And he's like, yes, I'm right. Smiling, grinning to himself over there. And I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Nice to have confirmation that you're right, isn't it, Larry?
Oh, Jim and I have been down that road many times.
Oh, yeah. On the way to the chocolate milkshake.
There you go, sir. I tell you, we're getting way behind on those.
Yep, we got to pick up that pace. You need to get your politicians up there to let me in.
No, well, yeah, we're working on that. Do you have dandelions in your front lawn?
Actually, yeah, I do. I do have some. Yes.
Okay, so that's also telling you need calcium.
Oh, okay.
What you will see once you get the calcium starting to work in your soil, what you will see is the grass will eventually overtake and push the dandelion into a more compact. You know how the dandelions have a tendency to spread out their leaves?
Right. Yeah.
Once the calcium content's up in your soil, and you can use this as an indicator, the dandelions will be forced into a much more compact area because the grass is much, much stronger and it's starting to take over that environment.
Okay. I thought it was a sign it was time to make flower crowns, but I was obviously mistaken. I thought it was that time of year, but okay, that's a great tip too. So definitely in need of some calcium.
So Larry, for a lawn that's never had any lime applied to it, what kind of rate would be a good rate?
Well, we had it calculated out years ago. I think 12 pounds per 1,000 square feet worked out to somewhere around a ton to the acre. Okay, so, and as you know now, a ton to the acre is peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
In most cases, you know, you're going to start at about 4 and go up from there. So if you can get, you know, a couple of passes over the lawn in the fall, or one in the fall and one in the early spring when it still rains around to help wash it in, it takes a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 years, depending how bad the lawn is. So, but that was just a setting that we arrived at for cyclone spreader to do that. And actually, that was on the drop spreader. But anyways, yeah, same, whatever.
So 50. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you know, if you looked at your spreader settings, see where the, you know, at 12, what the capability of the spreader is. You know, you look for 12 pounds as a starting point, and if you can get more on, then go for it.
Okay, thanks.
So, you know, Larry, you've told me how to help my plants outside, which I appreciate. I thought that, you know, Mother Nature just took care of that. You know, if I got them in the ground, that they will just thrive outside. So good to know. That's not, yeah, there's more I can do to help, right? But inside, I kill literally every plant that I have, and my mother is frequently coming over and saying, I'll just take this back for a while, and then I will bring it back to you when it is happy again. And then she comes and she takes it and she brings it back, and that's the only reason I have any plants in my house. Okay. So is there anything I can do, you know, to help the plants in my house do better? Because, I mean, I have the obvious issues of me forgetting to water, or overwatering, right? Or a cat eating leaves. But what, you know, is there anything else I can do to maybe help these plants be a little more durable and survive my household?
Well, we'll start back at the beginning again. Sprinkle a little bit of calcium on top of that potting soil.
Okay. And the calcium would help inside too?
That would help inside too.
Okay.
Rainwater. Don't use tap water. Use rainwater.
Okay, and it will make a difference.
Yes. And get yourself a smaller mister pump bottle, 100 to 1.
Okay.
100 parts water, 1 part growers, lightly, 1 squirt about every 10 to 14 days. I think Linda does about every other week here. Okay. Just walk around, just get 1 squirt and fine mist, let it settle on the plant and go on to the next one.
Okay. So I'm actually misting on the leaves.
Doesn't hurt either.
Okay. Sorry, what, Larry?
So a little bit of sunlight doesn't hurt either.
Yes. Well, I think they get enough sun. I do think that it's the watering issue.
Yeah. You know, get yourself a 45-gallon barrel or whatever and stick it under the eave trough at the end of the garage or something. But the big thing is to make sure it's dark. Okay. Don't let sunlight get into that water. If it does that, then you're going to end up with a mold or an algae bloom in the bucket. So if you can keep it dark, then it's going to stay clear, and you won't have to treat it with peroxide or something to kill off the algae.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So keep it dark.
I will have to take your advice and do those things. That's great. Thank you so much for your help. I don't think I have any other questions. Is there
I've got
a
question for you, Larry.
Okay.
Regarding a garden. So we just moved into our place where we are now in March, and we rototilled about 120 square foot area. It was grass before. When we rototilled in I think the equivalent of 10 to 11 tons per acre of of snow white, and manure, like composted manure, but I can't remember exactly how much. Then we ridged it up a bit, and that's our garden. I transplanted or retransplanted some tomato plants into it, and they the leaves went white, not entirely, but kind of like they were leached of color. I thought at first maybe it was the water we'd used, because it is rainwater out of a couple of rain barrels, but they had some, like there wasn't any algae I could see in them, but they got some pollen in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But other plants that we'd watered with it weren't exhibiting the same thing. So I thought maybe it was just transplant stress. And since then they're starting to grow out of it. Like the new shoots, the new leaves are nice and green. Do you have any input there?
Well, we ran into that here too, and I wasn't sure if maybe we didn't get the plants hardened off quite as good as they should have been before they were put outside. You know how you're bringing them out of the house and letting them get used to the climate outside, and then taking them back in at night, sort of thing, so they gradually get used to being outside.
I forgot about that entirely.
Yeah, so that might be part of your problem.
Okay.
You got a pencil there?
Now I do.
Okay, so a gallon of rainwater, a half an ounce of NA, about a third of a tablespoon of soil conditioner, and 5 ounces of growers. That's off my recipe page.
That's a spray on then?
Yeah, try that.
I will.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Larry and Zach and Jim, for coming and answering my questions. You know, especially Larry, I appreciate you taking the time to walk through the yard with me and go through every question I had, and appreciate your feedback, Zach and Jim, about other things, you know, we could do, and confirming that Larry is telling me true. You know, he's not leading me astray. I appreciate it. And we'll have to get together, you know, maybe next year, and follow up if I'm still having issues with my yard, because I might need some more help.
By all means.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please subscribe and share with a friend. If you'd like to learn more about the Growers Program, visit our website, www.growersmineral.com.